So let's go through this again for the benefit of those that are out there. The purpose of Chassidus is not to make you feel bad. So why does the Rebbe say you should go ahead and make the person feel embarrassed? The answer to that is you have to know what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to accomplish a sensibility and a sensitivity for something that is being blocked out by someone else. In order to get rid of that blockage, you've got to tear the barrier down. You know, the story of the Berlin Wall, you had to knock it down stone by stone. You have to take apart the barrier. What is the barrier? The barrier are the emotions and the ideas that surround you, that have been part of you, that are part of your sins, part of your actions, part of your thoughts, the entire lifetime. The person, by being so indulgent and being so surrounded by things that are against God, or at least not godly, these things block out godliness, and the only way to get godliness back is by removing them. That's called tshuva. Get rid of those things. Get rid of the desire for those things. And then you have to appeal to a higher calling within the person. God is everywhere. The Ein Sof is everywhere. The light of God is everywhere. Why can't I see it? Just because you want to block it out? How dare you? There's a world of godliness, of infinity, and it's apparent, and it's open, and it's so accessible. But you're just giving me slop, and the slop is blocking it out. How dare you? And this brings the person to want, and the godly soul then begins to see it, because there's nothing standing in its way, you've aroused that desire to see the Ein Sof. Sense, you don't see it with your physical eye, to see it with your mind's eye, to sense it everywhere, and to be overwhelmed by it, and not allow the animal. So the foremost thing is to deal with it, soften it up, break it apart, and then after you soften and break it apart with all different kinds of methods, you then extricate the feelings of the godly soul. Not only the feelings of the godly soul, but even the animal soul wants that. Saying, you really want the higher level. That's what the harlot wants, that the godly soul, that the prince should be successful. That's what it wants, because it wants the reward for that. And so, those two methods are the methods of choice for the intermediate. Transformation is an altogether different page, altogether different way. We do transform some of ourselves, but not our nature. We don't transform our nature. We don't make our nature into something good, because that's not who we are. We're not the tzaddik. I have to address some things that my friends out there have tried to make me aware of. And I'm going to have to address it in pieces. The first thing deals with things called biblical criticism in archaeology. Now, you have to understand the following. Bible criticism comes with different facets. They try to find and claim that they found support for their theories by the artifacts and the documents that they discover. In truth, they have no documents, and the artifacts are cryptic, and you don't know the source of the artifacts. But they try to piece together, from the little bit that they find, try to find and piece together a case. If they ever went before a court of law, they would never find the argument of the lawyer promoting that case as convincing. The only thing is, in the so-called world of scholarship, anything that goes against religion is considered okay. Anything that promotes religion is considered middle age and reactionary and just out of the pale of scientific thought. Let me just give you a couple of instances where the Bible critics said one thing and the discoveries recently say other things, and they've never acknowledged it. Number one, They used to tell us that Rebecca at the well was an anachronism. I've had this in another video, but I have to say it now because it's coming to the forefront now. They used to say that there were no camels in the time of Abraham, and therefore Eliezer could not have brought 10 camels to Haran, because there's no records of camels being raised in that time, that time in that place in the world. There was a city called Ugarit. Ugarit was contemporaneous with Abraham, and it was destroyed around Abraham's time. In Ugarit, they found many different things, including clay tablets that talked about the transactions that they had, and it includes the sale of camels, which tells you that camels existed in Mesopotamia, but because there were not many cities that dealt in them, they were very rare. So the man who had a camel was a rich man. And so you can understand that when Eliezer comes with 10 camels, this is 10 Rolls Royces, long Rolls Royces, the stretch Rolls Royces, coming to pick up the bride. No wonder Lavan ran with everything that he had in order to reach Eliezer. This was something that was so unusual. He had to go see it for himself. And he tried to, of course, kill Eliezer and take his wealth with him. The second case deals with the story of Jericho. Jericho was captured by Joshua, and the Bible critics say this couldn't have happened. They have the evidence that Jericho was destroyed but 200 years before Joshua, because all the artifacts predate him by about 200 to 300 years. Then about 10, 12 years ago, they discovered another part of the dig, another layer of the city. Remember, layer of a city, it's only about 1.5 feet to 2 feet. That's all a layer is. So they discovered a new layer with an entire area of the city that had heretofore not been discovered, and the walls collapsed as if they were destroyed by earthquake. We know that they blew shofar and the walls came tumbling down. They don't know why, but it looked like they fell down by an earthquake. And this was done in springtime because they had hermetically sealed jugs of grain that were fresh grain. You can tell the difference between if the grain was fresh or if the grain was old and dried. If it was fresh grains, it would have a different consistency than dry grains, which would have been hardened. And so the grains that were in those sealed jars were fresh grain, which means that it happened around Passover time, which is what it says in the Torah, in the Tanakh, in the book of Joshua. Do you think those guys ever admitted that they were wrong? Never. You have to understand that Bible critics, when they are contradicted, do not retract their statements. They just try to find other corroborating statements to their ideas. But here you have two major points of controversy where they were proven wrong by the latest archaeological findings. And so, my friends, yes, archaeology has a basis. And yes, we have to examine the words of the Torah clearly. But just because you find something that raises a question doesn't mean that that's the truth.